Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Talking About the Taboo, where curious minds run to who are on a mission to know everything there is to know about sex and relationships. Today's episode, we were bringing on a sex therapist, and her name is Kelly Ghweinem. Kelly is a licensed clinical social worker and an ASEX certified sex therapist. She is the co-founder of Erotic Intimacy Academy, an online educational platform for therapists and coaches. She has her own private practice and practices as a senior associate therapist at the Center for Love and Sex. Kelly is licensed in New York, New Jersey, Florida, and South Carolina. She specializes in queer affirming therapy and helping individuals and couples with challenges like pelvic pain disorders, erectile challenges, trauma healing, discrepant desire, ethical non-monogamy, kink, BDSM, and non-traditional relationship concerns. Kelly has been a therapist for over 10 years and is experienced in working with individuals, couples, and families from a variety of backgrounds, sexualities, genders, and relationship orientations. Wow, that was a mouthful. She is so successful. I met her on TikTok, that huge platform that brings us to awesome people. So, this episode is for people who possibly are, having trouble just talking about sex, right? This podcast is called Talking About the Taboo. We are going to talk about what people consider taboo, and that is just the conversations around sex. Are you curious about how possibly to set boundaries with your partner? Are you into a kink and maybe your partner isn't? Are you uncomfortable setting boundaries with your partner when it comes to like what you want to say and what you don't want to say? Are you just curious in general to hear more about how to talk about sex? Obviously you are because you're here. So please welcome sex therapist Kelly Ghweinem. She is going to do an excellent job. I already know it. And I love you all. But before we get to the goody goody, okay, you better like, subscribe, and share this podcast out. I love you all. Help a girl out. This is my passion. I'm doing it all on the kindness of my heart because I love sharing things about sex and relationships and just teaching you all things that you may not have known before or elaborating on things you've been curious about. We love curious minds around here. So stay tuned. Mwah. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Talking About the Taboo. I have another person on the screen. We have Kelly over here. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
How are you
Thank you for
doing?
having me. I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Good. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What are your accomplishments?
Yeah. So I'm Kelly Ghweinem. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I've been a social worker. Well, I've been a social worker in the human services field for uh, since I was 18. So I guess that's like 21 years. That's a really long time. I took like a 2-year break to work in corporate, and I hated it. Went back to
Yeah.
human services. So, and I've been a therapist for over 10 years. I am an ASEX certified sex therapist. So that is the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, and they accredit sex therapist because we need additional education to become sex therapists. I have my own private practice, the Velvet Psychotherapy Collective. I am the co-founder of the Erotic Intimacy Academy, and that's a digital online platform for therapists and coaches to learn how to integrate sex therapy practices, modalities, and theories into their general practice. So like think of couples therapists or marriage and family therapists or like relationship coaches that maybe they work with intimacy and emotional topics, but they need a little more help with the sexuality aspect. We teach classes and courses, and we have a certification to help individuals integrate that information into their practice. And I also work for the Center for Love and Sex as a senior associate therapist. And the owner of that, Sari Cooper, is the co-founder of the Erotic Intimacy Academy as well.
Wow. What? a successful journey you've been on for the last 10 years. You said you started at 18 years old. That's I
Mhm.
mean, you have such a motivation and a grind that, I aspire to have. That's amazing. So tell me a little bit more about getting certified in sex therapy. What would a normal like session look like? And just tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I'll start with like how to get certified and then what a
Mhm.
normal session would look like. So to
Absolutely.
get certified, you have to be, and this is for certified sex therapy. They
Mhm.
also have certified sex educator, which is some things that you're teaching about sex education. So certified sex therapy, you have to have a master's degree in something like social work or mental health counseling or marriage and family counseling or like a PsyD or a psychology degree, something like that, where
Mhm.
you are working with people in a therapeutic setting. And then you have to take, I believe it's 150 credit hours, that's CEUs, that are encompass like core knowledge. So the Erotic Intimacy Academy has some of those classes that you can take for ASEC certification, but there's other programs too, like you could take it as a master's degree program somewhere, or you could take it as a standalone sex therapy certification somewhere. So you have to get those hours. You have to do something that's called a SAR, which I think it is sexuality attitude reassessment.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks. And so that is like a 2-day weekend. It could be in person or virtual. And you have to do that, which exposes you to a lot of different ideas about sexuality to see what comes up for you. This is like your internal experience and to see, okay, how do I feel about when someone talks about kink? Or how do I feel when someone talks about human trafficking, right? And you're with other either educators, coaches, or therapists to do that. And then in addition to that, you have to do, I believe it's 300 hours of supervised clinical sex therapy. So that is working directly with things like erectile disorder or pelvic pain, discrepant desire, kink, right? So you're working directly with sex therapy issues and you're under a ASECT accredited sex therapy supervisor. So when I was
Wow.
starting out, how I got connected with Sari at the Center for Love and Sex is she was my supervisor for my clinical hours for sex therapy.
That's amazing. So you kind of met people along the way to get you further within your career and with your passion. I can only believe this is your passion,
Yeah.
right? To educate. And I think we really share that passion. Before we kind of get into like, what a normal session looks like, what are some challenges you ran into with becoming, a sex therapist? I would love to know.
Yeah, so some challenges that I ran into, well, speaking on like meeting people along the way, that is
Hmm.
so important, especially like networking for your career, just to learn about other opportunities. But also when you get into your career, especially in private practice, you're not going to have like that supervisor like you do in when you're earning your hours, right? So you want people that you can go to talk about and do case consultations because you're not going to know everything and that's important. So it's really important to find a mentor. And Sari has been an excellent mentor for me in the sex therapy field. And so finding someone like that is important. But I got off track of some challenges. So some challenges that I've run into has been, when I was first starting out and looking at, okay, how do I become a certified sex therapist? Because
Me.
you don't need to be certified to be a sex therapist. Like
Okay.
in Florida, you do. In Florida, you have to have the certification, but in other places, other like New York, you don't. You just need to like know something about sexuality, but I wanted the credentials. So when I was looking, I was very confused on what do I do? Like, how do I get these credit hours? How do I find a supervisor? How do I do this? And so navigating that was very challenging. I had to reach out and like talk to a lot of people, which was a little bit like vulnerable and difficult for me
Yeah.
because asking them for help of like, hey, like I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you help me out, like navigate this? So that was challenging. And then like just finding the time to build a practice, work with the clinical hours, and go like basically do extra school. Like for another, it was 2 years that I was doing extra classes and working and like trying to build a practice. So that was all pretty difficult to like in my journey.
Yeah, and I think every journey, especially when you're passionate about it, comes with a lot of challenges, and it seems like you were really determined despite, what you went through, to just get it done. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And again, I share that because I think I'm going like a little backwards though in essence because I just like grad school scares the living shit out of me.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me sick to think about it, the money,
Oh
the
yeah.
stress alone. But I decided, like, you know what? Maybe the Somatica Institute for Sex Coaching,
Mm-hmm.
will be a good start. I get a feel. I build mentors, right? I
Mm-hmm.
build connections, and I'm really excited to see where that takes me. And it's awesome to hear that you took the steps to do it, and now you're here. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
So explain what a normal session in sex therapy would be like.
Yeah. So a normal session in sex therapy is similar to a normal session in therapy. My orientation is very insight oriented. So, what that means is like I'm helping the client gain insight through, asking them questions, things like that. And so, with sex therapy, it always starts with a comprehensive assessment. And this can be different from other types of therapy, but in the comprehensive assessment, we're looking at all different areas to see how your beliefs about sexuality were formed and how those things are impacting whatever the issue is you're having now. So, for example, let's say someone is presenting with something like a panic disorder with pelvic pain. They've never had any type of penetration, but they feel that if they do have penetration, it's going to hurt, and so they panic when someone tries to touch their vulva, right? And so with that, during the assessment, what would look different from traditional therapy, which not sex therapy, is I would be asking what's happening when somebody touches your vulva? How did you learn about sex? What was the first time that someone touched your vulva? What was that like for you? Have you had any instances where someone has violated your boundaries sexually or emotionally? Have you ever had any injuries to your genitalia? And so I'm asking questions that in normal, in general therapy, you wouldn't be asking.
So I'm reading this book called My Body Keeps the Score.
Mm-hmm.
I love this book. I've just like looked at research according to the book, but I've never fully like read it. And that's something that you explained here, how they're having like a panic disorder, but they're also having like pelvic floor discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people say like, it's in your mind, but this book explains it's not. It's actually not in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
These are real feelings. So a lot of things that I'll be learning the Somatic Institute. It's somatic means body, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're feeling within your body. So a lot of people they really want to dive deep. They want to get deeper. They want to be more sensual. They want to be more connected to their body, but they're so avoidant when it comes to
Mhm.
like where do you feel that in your body? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So is this the kind of work that you possibly do? Do you talk about body work as well?
Oh, absolutely. That is a big part of it. So, something like a panic disorder, we're talking about, okay, what sensations do you feel in your body when you're experiencing that panic? But also, if you let's do some deep breaths and connect to your pelvic floor. Do you feel when you breathe in, do you feel your pelvic floor either contracting or that it's tense, right? So you're really focusing on what it's like in that pelvic floor. But also something that I like to do is visualization exercises. So I will have the person they'll start with the body-based breathing. We'll do a body scan, and then we'll go into visualizing. Okay, I want you to visualize your vulva, or I want you to visualize your vagina. And this might seem kind of like woo woo, but then
Mhm.
have them talk to it and say, like ask them, okay, ask your vagina whatever you want to ask it, right? And tell it that it's safe, so that you're creating this connection to your body in the mind. And that's something that we build on, and they're doing that outside of session too. And that just helps integrate the mind and body experience, because a lot of times people have this disconnection between their mind and body, and really getting that connected. And I think Bessel's book, The Body Keeps Score, talks about this. I'm not sure if it's his book or the polyvagal theory, but that it is trauma fractures that mind-body connection. And so what we want to do is realign that, and visualization is something that can help realign your mind and body. So it is, that body-based somatic work.
So I think the beautiful thing about therapy too is just seeing people grow out of their like discomfort in the beginning, right? Like they're so like, okay, I'm not talking to my vagina. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like even when you said that, I was like, huh, like what am I supposed to like look down and be like, hey girl, what's up?
It's all in the mind. You're visualizing the vagina in your mind.
And I love that. I love the different outlook on it, and building that comfortability around who you are in your body and your mind. So you said you've been in therapy for 10 years. Can you explain to me maybe an instance of a success story where they had a struggle, you worked with them, you did this, and here they are?
Yeah. So just for confidentiality, this is going to be a composite of different people, but I'll use one that we use in our so in the certification classes for Erotic Intimacy Academy. We use a lot of case examples, so I'm going to use one of those. So I worked with someone who he was in his like 40s. About 40s, and he had an issue with delayed ejaculation. And so what that is he was not able to ejaculate in a time that he felt it was too long, right? Like for him, he was never able to ejaculate with a partner. He was able to ejaculate with on his own, but with a partner, he was not able to ejaculate. So with him, we also worked on he was thinking, okay, maybe it is because I watch too much porn, or maybe it's because I've been exposed to porn since I was like a teenager, right? Like, because a lot of people now, especially in their 30s and 40s, have access to the internet since they were teenagers, and probably like unfiltered access, and saw a lot of things. And so in my practice, I see a lot of people who think like, okay, has porn ruined my relationship with sex? And so that was something that came up. And we really worked on letting go of shame of like, that this is a thing that happened, really, that delayed ejaculation happened, letting go of that shame. We explored, is it something that it's because of the way that you masturbate? Because that is part of like the sex therapy model, is some people have a unique way of masturbating, and because they masturbate that way, then they're not able to ejaculate with a partner. And so we have to explore that in the assessment. That was not the case. And then we worked on, okay, is this a psychological or emotional thing? And this was difficult, right? Because it was integrating that body and like emotional piece. And so that was something that this person was like kind of resistant to, of like, no, I think it is just like physical. Like it's not emotional. Like I'm good. I'm great emotionally. After our work together, it was okay, there's this fear of intimacy, which is really like something common with delayed ejaculation. And once we explored that, once we processed through that, and they learned how to be more emotionally intimate with their partner, they were able to finally ejaculate with their partner. And that was a big success for them, because in their life, they had never done that.
I love to hear that. That's amazing. And I think, we talk about like emotionally avoidant individuals. You can be sexually emotionally avoidant.
Yes,
It's the
absolutely.
real thing. And he seemed to be like, nah, I'm fine. I got
Yeah.
this. It is physical. I just want to come.
Yeah.
Okay. Help me come. I'm here to come. And so that's amazing. See that, guys, the listeners, this is what sex therapy is all about. You come in with a presented problem, you know, you can't ejaculate. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to dive deeper into you. You may think the solution is one way, they find out it's another, and you can be successful if you really put your mind and body
Mm-hmm.
into it. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so sex can be extremely difficult to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You have a partner and you want to talk about like your kink, and you're scared because your kink could be a shame kink, and they may think that you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't, you know, like very, very like type of mentality. So, can you discuss why maybe sex may be like an uncomfortable conversation for people, and how to really like burst that bubble around it a little bit?
So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that sex may be uncomfortable for people. I think a big thing is that we live in a very conservative society, and Americans generally don't think that we live in a conservative society. But when
I
it
know.
comes to when it comes to sex, even though it's used as a commodity to sell a lot of things, having it as a form of pleasure, especially pleasure for women, is not something that we talk about. And then for men, it's all about a like this is what we're taught, right? That it's a conquest, or that it's something that you take from somebody. It's not something that is like a mutual experience. And so as we grow up in this society, and that's the society at large, right? But then we also have like, you know, how is it talked about at school? How is it talked about in the home? Was it even talked about at the home? Because not talking about it is also a message about sex. And then how is it talked about in your like if your social activities, right? That all informs how we then feel about talking about sex. And we are a very sexually repressed society, so people feel it's taboo.
Mhm.
It's also if you should be good at sex, and if you're not good at sex, something is wrong with you. And it's this like, I guess, belief or ideal around like the performance of sex. And
Mhm.
so that also impacts like people feel a lot of shame. Oh, something's wrong with me because of this. I'm not normal because of this. And so I just need to hide it away, because if people find out, like, you know, they're going to make fun of me or whatever, I'm going to be an outsider. So all of these like factors impact how people want to talk about sex in their relationships, or with, you know, or like friendships, whatever. But it also impacts how they want to seek help for issues too, because
Mhm.
it can take a while for people to have an issue and then seek help. Like sometimes people have, you know, erectile dysfunction or pain with sex, and they don't want to go talk to their primary doctor about it because they feel embarrassed, where that could be like a first step to helping them resolve the problem.
Yes. And again, it's societal, it's cultural, it's personal. And you know, you go to a primary care physician, they ask you that question like, are you having sex? And they don't go any further.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, I think that at your yearly, they should be like, are you having sex? Are you enjoying sex? Is it pleasurable? Is
Yeah.
anything hurt? Like they don't go deeper.
Mm-mm.
No pun intended. Like they they don't. And it's really unfortunate. And that really causes in the long run challenges further on, just talking about like your discomfort around anything, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
you talked about that idea of like sex sells, right? Um, my senior thesis in college was actually about how sex sells and the detriment to our psyche. Because
Mm-hmm.
I had a communications degree and a psychology degree, so I was like, how can I like merge these together? And so I talked about like the media, and I talked about even like Betty Boop and like all these like just things that have been like pushed and thrown in our faces
Mm-hmm.
throughout our entire lives, and it really gave those false pretenses about how sex is and is not supposed to be. Um,
Yeah.
so you handle, you know, individuals and also like couple issues and things like that. So explain to me like a challenge that couples face with intimacy, and like how these challenges can be addressed.
Yeah, so a common challenge that couples face is discrepant desire. So, one person wants more sex or different kind of sex than the other person wants. And that creates some tension in the relationship. And so, if we just go with frequency, it could look like something in the beginning of a relationship. Maybe they had a lot of sex or they had sex every day. And then as the relationship went on, they had less and less sex, and one person still wants to have that frequency of sex and the other person is pretty okay with not having that frequency, and so they have conflict about what to do about it. And they, a lot of times, by when they're coming to see me, they're at a standstill of like, we've talked about this 1,000 times and nothing changes. We don't know what to do about it. And so what we work on is like first getting to, okay, what is happening that, why don't you want to have sex, right? So if the person is, they went from like 4 times a week, now they barely want to have sex 1 time a month. Okay, what's going on? Is there pain with sex? Are you enjoying the sex that you're having? We'll start with what's called a sexual script. So I'll ask them, tell me about the last time that you had sex. And we go through in detail. And this can be uncomfortable for people.
Of
So I'll say,
course.
tell me about the last time they have sex. And they'll say something like, well, we were on the couch and then we went to the bed and then we kissed and then we had sex. And I'm like, no, tell me about like, how were you touching? Where were you kissing? How did you go from like watching TV to kissing? And then how did you go from kissing on the couch to the bedroom? And who took off their clothes first, or did you undress? And like we go into detail because there could be something there too that is unintentionally turning the person off to not wanting to have sex.
Yeah, so the idea of sexual scripts, again, something I'm super intrigued by, and again,
Mhm.
something I did research on as well, because sexual scripts are, again, that goes back to like that mainstream idea. This is how it's supposed to be.
Mhm.
For example, my partner's supposed to initiate, like if it's, especially if it's like a male female, he's supposed to initiate it, and then I join along, and he's the dominant one, and I'm just going to be submissive, and then he's going to touch me here. Like, there's also like that anxiety in sexual scripts, right? Like you're like,
Mhm.
okay, this is the next step. This is the next step. This is the next step. And it's supposed to be more fluid,
Mhm.
we're not supposed to be thinking about what we're having for dinner.
Mhm.
Okay. And a lot of sex therapists and individuals that I speak to talk about how difficult it is to really, again, combine the mind and the body and sit there and
Mhm.
enjoy the pleasure.
Yes.
And so can you explain to me just how, like, you would recommend individuals who are having trouble, like, between that mind and body, and, like, if they're receiving, how can they just sit there and enjoy it? Like, what would you do to help them with something like that?
Yeah, so there's a couple steps. Like we want to talk about mindfulness, right? So we want to talk about how to be present in the moment and really feeling those sensations. So first, I would ask the person to work on that alone, right? So maybe it looks like something, they're in the shower and they're focusing, okay, how does that water feel as it's touching my head? How does it feel as it's running down my body? What does the temperature feel like? What is the sensation that that's evoking in my body? And you're paying attention to that for a little while. You're getting used to this idea of paying attention. Then when it comes to sex, we want to focus on, okay, if my mind is, I'm thinking about over here, I'm thinking, whatever we're thinking about, right? Like maybe what's for dinner. And I want to bring it back to the moment. You focus on, we call them erotic triggers. And so what is your biggest erotic trigger? Maybe it is smell. And so, okay, I'm going to focus on how my partner smells right now. And that's what I'm going to focus on to bring me back in the moment. And I would ask them to do that. Maybe it's taste. Okay, so you're going to, lick your partner, or you're going to kiss your partner, and then you're going to focus on what does that taste like? And it's not going to be, do I like this taste or do I not like this taste, or is this bringing me pleasure? It's just, what does this taste like, to bring your attention from here back to the moment. And you would practice that.
So we also a lot of the times, as sex therapists, we're like, again, it goes back to the idea of like that's just like too serious. Like I'm not going to
Mhm,
sit there and think about, but no, it really is about the senses, and it really is like activating like what this feels like and what that feels like.
mhm,
I talk a lot about too on this platform about how foreplay does not begin on the couch.
mhm,
Foreplay begins in the morning when you wake up and you're kissing and you're teasing, and foreplay begins even days before when, he may have done something that's like a part of your love language, and then all of a sudden your pussy's throbbing. Uh,
mhm,
you know what I mean? And that's something interesting. Something that I personally do is music. I love music. Oh my God. Music
mhm,
built so much tension within my body, especially like I have a whole playlist. The playlist is called Clit-Municate. That's my whole saying. And I even like the other night I had, some wine. I was by myself. Okay. I
mhm,
had some wine. I listened to music and I literally just flowed in my body. I call it like the flow. That's literally what I call it. And it's me. That is like a sense to me masturbating. I do because I'm feeling what this feels like. What does that feel like? I listen to a lot of like Desco house music to help, and it's like the and it makes me feel so much more in my body. And then when my partner
mhm,
comes home, it's a happy ending for me and for him because I really did that work, and he just came home from work. So
mhm,
it's a beautiful thing for listeners to really activate your body. It may be, using your sensations of sound like I do and, building that intimacy in your body and in yourself, or it's the touch like you spoke about when it
mhm,
comes to like the shower and how does this feel and how does that feel? Really like talk to yourself,
mhm,
you talked about like talking to your vag, like talk to it, talk to
mhm.
it. It's got a personality. It doesn't cannot be ignored. It will not be ignored.
Yes.
So I also wanted to talk about like navigating the differences in libido too with
Mhm.
couples and the sexual preferences within the relationship. Like that's a struggle. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so that a lot of people don't actually communicate about sex. They feel like we have sex or we don't have sex, and that's our communication about sex. But open communication is so important.
Clit-Municate.
Yes, exactly. Especially like if you, let's say you've been together for 10 years and then you found out that you really like some kink, right? And you want to start exploring it. You need to be able to talk to your partner of like, hey, like I found out about this. Like, what do you think about it? Do you think that's something that we could try? And your partner being open to like, open with curiosity of, oh, like where'd you find out about that? What do you think that would be like? What intrigues you about it, right? And this, the way that I'm talking is very kind of like structured,
Yeah.
and people generally don't talk like that. This is like kind of
I know.
therapy, like yeah, this is.
Yeah.
But like take the like what is it, like the theme of it, and then you build it with your own language so that you're having these curious conversations with your partner, and it's not turning into a fight or a blame game of like, well, you never want to do what I want to do, or like we
Mhm.
you know, I don't know what people fight about, like sex is so boring, or like we're just not going to
Too
talk about
vanilla.
it.
Like, I want hardcore. I want you to throw me up against the wall. Where's
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you're right. People do not communicate about it. They feel some type of shame about it. Is my partner going to be mad at me or judge me? Am I
Mhm.
saying something wrong? It's again, it's in your head and we can't connect it. And we're scared. We
Yeah.
are scared
Yeah.
and we think it's taboo. And also that brings into the conversation of like setting boundaries with your
Mhm.
partner, whether it be sexual or I mean any boundary. So like how can this be established and respected? Like how can couples really navigate around that?
Yeah. So something that, like cis heterosexual monogamous couples can learn from like non-monogamous couples or the kink community or the queer community, some of the queer community is like communicating openly and having boundaries, right? So in kink, just for example, like you're going to talk, if you're doing it in a healthy way, you're going to talk about what those boundaries are before a scene even happens. So you're going to lay out, okay, like this is okay, this is not okay, this is, what I want to get out of it, right? And not saying that you have to have those conversations for like everyday sex, but you want to have some sort of conversation around like, okay, I really like when you touch me here, or you do this, but I don't like if I'm doing the dishes and you come up behind me and you grab me. That is a turnoff for me, and I don't want that to happen, right? So you want to frame it as things that you do like and things that you don't want to happen. And you also have to, say it in a way that is straightforward and clear. You don't want to beat around the bush here. You want to be very clear, but you also want to be respectful and kind to your partner, and open to what they're going to say back, and open to a dialogue and conversation. Because I've noticed too, couples will say, okay, well, I said this and they said that back, and then there's no more conversation, where there's a lot to be said, or there's a lot to discuss, and you can have that back and forth conversation and feel comfortable with that.
So you brought up the idea also of non-monogamy too, and how like
Mhm.
we can really, really learn from that. And I had a situation, right? So like I had a threesome, and
Mhm.
it was two females, one male. I was seeing this girl. She used to see this guy, and they were like just trying to like hop right into it, and I had to be the bigger person and be like, yeah, whoa, whoa, no, we need to sit down. Like we were
Mhm.
literally on a boat, so I was like, before we rock the boat. Okay, let's take a seat. And they
Mhm.
were like, what? And they were super like weirded out by that. And then in that moment, I was like, should I be doing this? Because why am I with individuals who are not willing to talk about what? And so it really did. I sat down. I said, "What do you like? What do you not like? Hey, like you were this with this person first. Is there anything that you don't want me to do? Anything that you don't
Mhm.
want me to touch? I want to use protection. She didn't want to use protection. So
Mhm.
this is something like she couldn't. She was like allergic to the certain type of
Mhm.
condoms or whatever. And it was just that conversation we had to frame around it. And to me, that turns me on.
Mhm.
I don't know about everybody else, but like communication is lubrication. It really lubricates it up in there because I felt comfortable. I felt comfortable in the moment, and I think in the long run they did too.
Yeah.
And I told them, hey, after this is like my first time, by the way. They're like, really? Because you're doing a pretty good job. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I wanted it to be perfect. And like this is what I need after, I really want us all to like cuddle and kind of talk about our experiences together. And that was awesome because at the end of it, they did. And at the end, she did have some type of like discomfort. And we talked about like what happened, like
Mhm.
she didn't like how it kind of ended, if you get the drift of what I mean. And
Mhm.
we needed to talk about the discomfort, and it really it builded, I can't know what the plurals that is.
Bill.
It built it built such a comfortable just in our bodies, and we just talked about what went wrong, what went right. That never happened again.
Mhm.
But it was beautiful. And I really Clit-Municated there. And so I definitely agree with you when it comes to how we can really learn things from non-monogamous type of dynamics.
Mhm.
And whether you're doing it once or you're in a non-monogamous relationship, they have this skill set that they have taught themselves and built that monogamous relationships can really, really, really learn about. Um, so also you had talked about earlier how, like a little bit of we got into like how trauma can affect our inner, bodies and how we feel
Mhm.
things. Can you discuss how like past trauma or experiences can impact one's sexual health and relationships and stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, something something that can happen, right? So, a lot of times we think that things that happen when we're a kid, like we don't remember.
Yeah.
So, let's say that someone had and kind of a trigger warning here, someone had a sexual trauma before they were verbal. So, before 2 or 3 years old, something happened to them sexually. They don't
Mhm.
remember it,
Mhm.
but then when they are in their 20s, or they're having their first sexual experience, whatever age that is, first consensual sexual experience that they're having, they notice that their body tenses up and they feel like, oh, this feels like an invasion, right? And they can't draw that connection. Their body remembers that that was a danger for them, that something happened to their body when they were pre-verbal, but now that they're experiencing it, even though they cognitively and emotionally want it, their body is protecting them from what happened. And so that's something that can happen, is you have a trauma response in the moment of tensing up, or that feeling of like invasion, or that feeling of I need to get out of here. That can impact a sexual situation. Or if, maybe when someone has a relationship where sex was used as a way to control them, then when they get into their next relationship, they're fearful of how sex is going to be used, and it doesn't feel like something that's pleasurable. They don't know how to connect to the pleasure of sex because it's so connected to that pain and trauma. And so being able to reclaim that pleasure, which Dr. Holly Richmond has an amazing book on this. I actually think it's called Reclaiming Pleasure, but it's a step-by-step book of like, okay, you've experienced sexual trauma. How do you get back into a place of experiencing pleasure with sex versus having a trauma response every time you have sex?
Yeah, that's something actually, the trauma-based approach that I do in therapy, like my personal therapy. We're looking at the family systems,
Mhm.
and I love it. The different parts of self, not like multiple personalities. A lot of people like confuse that, right? You think you
Mhm.
may have BPD. A lot of us probably have tendencies
Mhm.
of BPD, but we all have interfamily systems. What that means is interpersonalities that all act and react in different ways and formalities. And we part of my parts of self is the my child, like my little girl,
Mhm.
and I that is activated sexually sometimes, and that's intriguing to me. That daddy little girl type of the kink that I have, and I'm little uncomfortable in my mind sometimes where I'm like, I use daddy in sex, but that actually has a deeper meaning. It actually
Mhm.
does, and I activate some type of internal family system in me when I'm having sex and using that, and I diving a lot deeper into that in therapy. I actually am teaching my therapist things about like sex therapy a little bit,
Mhm.
which is an awesome thing, and she's dived deeper too in for it for herself. Just like looking at how trauma can really impact our sexual desires, our core desires, and if we don't look into it, they're just going to keep being tensed up
Mhm.
and be locked. And we want to open that Pandora's box, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to close it.
Yeah.
And
I do
that's
want to add something on there though,
yeah.
that not you might never know why you have a desire or why something comes up, and that is it's because we don't really know like why we like the things that we do, right? So
Mhm.
something in like the kink community is, people sometimes, there's this myth that if you experience trauma, then you're gonna like, let's say like rough sex or something like that,
Yeah.
or like, yeah, right, because you're re oh my god, I forgot the word, but uh, you're like replaying the trauma, right? You're
Mhm.
re-engaging with the trauma, but that's not always true. Sometimes you just like rough sex because you
Yeah.
like rough sex, and it has nothing to do with something that you've experienced
In the past.
before in your life. And Jack Moran, who was a sexuality researcher and sex therapist, he wrote a book called The Erotic Mind, where he really dives
Mhm.
into sexual desire and how our desire is formed. And there's just some things that we don't know, and that's okay. Like, we like the things we like because we like them, and there's no like deeper meaning to them.
Yeah, that's something my friend actually told me. She's like, "Natalie, I love you, but, like, not everything has to be, like, dove deep into. You don't have to." And I'm like, "Sorry, that's, like, the therapist mind, like, I always wanna look deeper into everything. I feel like there's an inner meaning for everything." And you're right, and you know what? Thank you for bringing that up because think people are into things like, there's grape kinks too.
Mhm.
And that's something that people think they want to, you have to dive really, really deep into. And some people do, and some people don't. Like if that's your kink, that's your kink. And you really don't have to explain yourself or feel guilty about it in the first place. And
Yeah.
that's a difficult conversation to have. And there's a lot of different things that people can be uncomfortable talking about, whether it be, kinks, discomforts, desires. And so I had some writer like listener write-ins that I'd like to
Mhm.
share with you where they asked me for advice. I gave them advice for what I thought was right, but
Mhm.
I asked them for consent to share their stories. They're going to remain anonymous, but I'm going to read them to you. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So the first one says, "Hey, Natalie, my boyfriend wants me to be louder when we have sex, but I cannot comprehend that concept at all. I can do dirty talk, but moaning makes me uncomfortable. To the level in which he wants, I was trying to explain that, like, I can't help it unless he's asking me to put on a show. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I feel we're doing this. What should I do?" So
Mhm.
what's your idea about, the moaning and dirty talk and
Yeah. So interestingly, I just saw that a study came out that the when you make noise during orgasm, it makes your orgasm feel more intense. Um,
ooh,
that's
intriguing.
interesting. However, I do think that you should is like a very
Would be.
heavy
Yeah.
word,
Mhm.
but like doing things that you feel comfortable with, trying things that you might feel uncomfortable with, but not to the point of like, I don't want to do this. Just like, okay, what does it feel like? Do I like it? Do I not like it? And if you don't
Mhm.
like it, don't do it anymore. But also exploring why don't you like moaning during sex? Is it because you're afraid of being loud? Is it if you're afraid someone's going to hear you and then they're going to judge you for experiencing pleasure? Like, what is we talked about not exploring things deeper, but like, what is the deep, like, why don't you want to moan? And being really open and honest with yourself about what that barrier is.
Yeah, I talked to her a lot about too the idea of compromising in a relationship too,
Mhm,
and like activating the stuff that may be uncomfortable for you is sometimes worth it. You know what I mean? That this individual is actually, a mom, so I'm sure there's some discomfort around like waking up the baby
mhm,
or something like that. And there's times too where he may not be there. Maybe you can explore that side of things. Maybe like
mhm,
a staycation of some sort. But something pleasurable to at least me in my mind is pleasuring my man,
mhm,
like my partner. I want to pleasure my partner. I want to make, him happy. And I asked her too. I was like, is this something you would be interested in doing to make your partner happy? Do you think this will make him happy? She's like, absolutely. There's something else that I would want to be happy. I was like, then are you comfortable just like saying, yeah, fuck me, daddy? Like, are you
mhm.
like, can you, do that? Like, cause I use humor. And she's like, yeah, I could do that. I really can do that. And I was like, all right, well, tell me how that goes.
Yeah.
Cause I think, opening up that Pandora's box to the idea of dirty talk, a lot of people do
Mhm.
struggle with.
Yeah, and
Like,
maybe she will like it, and if she doesn't,
yeah.
that's okay too, like,
Yes,
you're
yes,
trying something.
yeah, and you trying something for your partner is gonna show that you really love and you really care
Mhm,
about his pleasure, and the idea too that you were talking about how having an orgasm and, like, making a sound, like, maybe makes it sound better. That may be, like, the activation in the body, like, the sound in
yeah,
the body. I would like to look into that if you can send me that information,
yeah,
because that's really intriguing to me because, like, there's quiet sex and then there's, like, loud sex, and to me, like, I'll be making sounds that I don't even know. I sound like like Chewbacca or something sometimes, like, and I don't care, I'm in my own home, I
mhm,
got nobody around. I don't care. So yeah, to that listener, write in. I appreciate you, get giving me that to share, number one. And I hope that you're able to talk dirty because we like talking
mhm,
dirty around here. um so the next one I will read. It says, "Hi, Natalie. Keep me anonymous if that's okay. I
mhm,
have had issues at the time with touch around my dick and my crotch area, so much that I tend to tense up, and sometimes sex is not as fun. And sometimes it makes me not focus on what's happening. What is a solution that can help my problem go away? Love the show. Keep doing great things."
mm. So this one is really working on, again, getting in touch with your mind and body. So
Mhm.
what is being activated when someone is trying to touch your genitals, right? Is it that you don't feel ready yet? It's too soon. Maybe you're like just sitting on the couch watching TV and they're just, going over and grabbing your dick. And some people really love that, but other people don't. And so if that's the case, talking to your partner or talking to the person you're with of like, hey, like, let's slow it down a little bit. Maybe you need that like build up, you need that kind of like slow sensuality or like kissing, or you just need something more before it goes to that place of like touching your penis, right? It could also be that you're feeling anxiety about like something, like it could be feeling anxiety of what's going to happen next, or how is this going to go, playing, we call it playing the tape out. You're playing the tape out all the way to the end and trying to like anticipate what's going to go on, and you're having anxiety there. And so really like reflecting on what is happening in my body, what's happening in my body, but also in my cognitions when someone's reaching across to touch me.
Yeah, I actually talked about the same thing about how, like, I like that you just said, playing what was it? Playing the script out or
Playing out the tape.
playing out the tape. I really like that idea, and if he's listening, I know he is, that's an amazing thing to think about. I had told him too, I'm like, "What's do you have, like, goals? Like, are you thinking about, like, a goal? Like, are you worried
Mm.
about, like, what is are you trying to, like, forward it?" Like, I kinda brought up
Mhm.
the same idea, and he's like, "Well, yeah, I wanna come." Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Huh. So, what about we switch that around, and let's have the goal that she can, like, spider a little bit closer to your dick." Maybe
Mhm.
that's the goal. Maybe the goal is that you can get her to have her mouth on it, and you can just enjoy that. Maybe the goal is for you to just untense yourself a little bit, like, we focus so much on that, forwarding the tape, what's the end look like, and we don't sit in our pleasure. He has so much
Mhm.
trouble sitting in the pleasure that it's really hard for him to get to the point of even sex in general.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. I think that he needs to, sit down and again build that mind and body, and even doing some, like, pleasure work with his partner.
Mhm.
Maybe she has her own anxieties as well, and then they can Clit-Municate together.
Yeah.
And really, really talk out, their own uncomfortabilities around it,
Yeah.
and build their own script per se.
Slow it down a
Um,
little bit, right? Like, you don't need to go right to the end. What is happening in between?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, thank you for that advice. I have
Mhm.
one more story. This is not a listener write-in, this is actually a Reddit story. And it is labeled "My significant other isn't satisfying my sexual desires."
Mm.
Ooh. All right. So, I, 28 female, have been with my boyfriend, 27 male, for 6 years. We have been living together for 4 years, and we love each other very much. He is the best guy I have ever been with, and we have so much in common. However, he is no longer satisfying me in bed anymore. From the beginning, he always had lower energy towards sex than me, but lately we only do it when I initiate it, and it makes me feel undesired. He also is not dominant enough for me. He wasn't used to it with partners when we first got together, but he was up for trying and learning it. Well, it seems he has reached his limit now, and it still isn't good enough for me. Before I was with him, I had a very dominant partner who I was with for 5 years, and he was 5 years older than me, rather than 1 year younger. My previous partner didn't satisfy me in anything besides sex, so of course it didn't last. My current partner satisfying me is everything except sex, and I don't know what to do. I feel it's silly to break up over sex, especially since it's the only issue in our relationship, but lately I just feel it's growing more and more, and I'm getting irritated at him whenever he jokes around instead of being serious. We have talked about it multiple times, and each time he tells me he will do something about it, but he's done nothing. I don't know what to do anymore. I feel maybe there's something wrong with me because I want to be degraded and shamed instead of being loved like a little flower. So perhaps it's me and I'm the issue?
Well, they're
Mm,
not the issue. That's, everyone likes different things sexually. But actually, I would recommend that this couple goes to sex therapy so that they
mhm,
can have a conversation about what sex means to each of them and what being in a relationship means to each of them. So if he views this person as, um, someone that he loves, maybe, or someone that he's emotionally intimate with, maybe that's a barrier for him to be degrading or to engage in that dominant type of behavior, because that doesn't align with his values of how he sees an intimate romantic partner. And so those like sexual values with his emotional values don't align with hers, right? So they could have a conversation about what like, what does that type of sex mean to her? What does that type of sex mean to him? How can they try to like try this out a little bit and engage in it? And if they can't, maybe there's an alternative solution. Like, maybe they do have an open relationship where she engages with in this kink with somebody else. That might not work if their relationship orientation is strictly monogamous, but we don't need to go right to like breaking up because they've had conversations and it hasn't gone anywhere. There's other things that they can do in between.
Yeah, so there's an edit with this too, actually. It says, so I have gotten some repetitive responses that I would like to edit in. Some of you are thinking either him or I are cheating or will cheat. None of us are, and none of us will. We have always said that if we ever thought of doing it or had already done it, we would come clean immediately, which most likely would lead to a breakup as we are both monogamous. Okay, so they're monogamous. Regarding looks and weight, none of us are wow, what? This is awful. None of us are fat, but yes, we both have gained weight throughout the years, especially during COVID, as we used to work out regularly before that. But afterwards, not so much. We still find each other attractive and both started working out recently. I've asked him before if he is gay or asexual since we got together very young, and a lot of people first figured out their sexuality later in life. He's not gay, but he has considered looking into the aspects of asexuality since there are some gray areas in there and that might fit for him. Okay. I've already talked with him about what we can do, and we agreed that we would seek professional help. Okay. And we both still love each other, and we also check with his doctor if the medicine he is on is affecting his testosterone level or energy towards sex. None of us had considered before, but perhaps it's a factor. Okay. I like that. I like that
Yeah.
solution.
But it sounds like too, they want different types of sex, right? So it wasn't about like the frequency of sex, but the type of sex that they want. And that is a barrier to having sex, especially if like neither one of them is initiating, right? They're not going to be having sex if no one's initiating. But Reddit always goes to break up or someone
Yes.
like that's the response for Reddit. So
And that's like so unfortunate. And I read Reddit like it's a book, honestly. I love Reddit. I learn a lot from Reddit. You do you like Reddit too?
I love it. I love it. But it's the dead bedroom and the couples
Dead bedroom's a great subreddit, but it's annoying.
Her response is always break up with them, like, or they like nothing's going to change, or like, oh, they're just having what do they call it when like they want to get back together, so crisis sex or something like that. And I'm like, that's not
break up sex or make
yes, not break up sex, like when they have a conversation and then the sex increases and then the people are like, well, it's only increasing because they're like trying to hold on to the relationship and stay. And I'm like, this, like, you guys have 3 responses to everything. That's not all that can happen.
Exactly. And I mean, we need some sex therapists, some sex coaches up in here to be like, y'all, this is my edit. Shut the up. You are wrong.
Then they'll be like, you're not a sex therapist. Like, what are you talking about?
That's social media, and social media can really, again, make or break sometimes. And there's a podcast that I listen to called Sex with Emily, and I love her. Yeah, she's a great podcaster. And she talks about the idea too of timing, tone, and turf. And every conversation, whether it be about sex or relationships or anything, needs to have a good time, needs to be a good tone, and where are you doing it? What's the turf? So as we're getting into the end here, I also wanted to talk about maybe some like recommendations and resource and support to help individuals and build on techniques and explore aspects of sexuality. You did talk about some books, and what do you recommend?
Yeah. So if you're a coach or a therapist that wants more training on sexuality, the Erotic Intimacy, I'm of course going to plug our stuff. The Erotic Intimacy Academy has the See It certification, which is sexually educated, erotically informed therapist or trainer. And it's for 36 ASEC CEUs, so that if you're pursuing ASEC certification, you want to dip your toe in, this is, you get CEUs, and it's also for New York State Board of Social Workers CEUs. So if you're a social worker in New York State and you need to renew your license, we also offer that for the CEIT certification, or like the webinars, we also have CEUs for those. So that's one thing for the therapists and coaches if you want to learn more. If you're looking to learn more about sexuality in general, some books that I like are Emily Nagoski, Come As You Are. That is an amazing book on women's sexuality. Ian Kerner, what is it called? She Comes First. And so that's for people with penises who have premature ejaculation. And it's talking a lot about oral sex and how to like please your partner. So it's not just about premature ejaculation, but it also gives some techniques for premature ejaculation as well. Another book that I really like, this isn't so much centered around sex, but it is around relationships. So Esther Perel, The State of Affairs, and that talks all about infidelity, why infidelity can happen, some things on how to prevent infidelity. So those are 3 books that speak to sexuality and are really powerful books. And then if sexual trauma, that is Reclaiming Pleasure by Dr. Holly Richmond. That book is amazing, and I use it with my clients. Sometimes we'll read through in session, and then we'll talk about what's coming up for them, like as we're reading through, as they're doing the exercises. And that is just an amazing book that I really like to use.
Thank you so much for the recommendations. I love reading. I love educating. I am a knowledge junkie, and I know there's listeners out here that also agree. They love knowledge. Before I let you go, where can we find you if we want to, chit chat with you, your socials?
Yeah, so you can, if you want to get more information on Erotic Intimacy Academy, it's www.eroticacademy.net. Or you can email us at eroticacademy24@gmail.com. If you want to reach me specifically, you can find me on Instagram at Kelly_Ghweinem. Or you can go on my website. It's Velvet Psychotherapy Collective.
Thank you so much. And also, one more thing, if you could tell listeners one thing, what would you say?
If I could tell listeners one thing, it would be to really tap into what is pleasurable for you. So one thing that Emily Nagoski likes to say is pleasure is the measure. And so for, good sex. And so really tapping into what's pleasurable and seeking that pleasure. And it doesn't just have to be sexual. Seek pleasure in other areas of your life as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So we definitely Clit-Municated today, guys. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling juicy. I'm feeling juicy. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode with Kelly Ghweinem. And Kelly was an amazing. I think she really helped the conversation build and really elaborated on things. For those who did the listener write-ins, thank you so much. And I hope the advice that she gave you could really build further on your ideas and helping you really, activate in those conversations around sex. Today we dove into those ideas about how trauma can impact us and how we need to connect the mind and the body, and to dive more into that idea of maybe sound is something that builds our erotic pleasure, and maybe it is touch that builds that erotic pleasure. But whatever it may be, I think it is very important that we all do just like sit down, and I just really want to encourage listeners to start having these important conversations in their own lives, whether you seek professional help or not. And we really need to Clit-Municate, and this is what I mean when I say Clit-Municate. I love you guys, and building that comfortability around just talking about it with you. And she talked about how You wanted to talk to your vagina or talk to your penis. Yes, talk to your genitals. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but it's not. And that has a deeper meaning. You need to connect and try to connect your mind and your body and build on that pleasure pinpoint. Before I let you go, we have the sex toy of the week. You already know the sex toy of the week is this beauty. I will pin it over here. Over here. I will pin it over here. Sorry, I just like hit the microphone. My bad. So I did not get the time to use this because number one, I'm on my lady days. It's Shark Week. Okay. And I didn't want to, but I did go on Amazon, okay, where I write my reviews for it. And I read this one person's review. Now, it's a longer review. Okay, it is. But I really appreciated her detail in explaining this toy. So this is a G-spot vibrator. So the actual name of it is literally it's an app control wearable G-spot vibrator. And also the price is only $15.99, as you see in the picture. This is what she said. She said, I can confidently say it has transformed my intimate experiences. From the sleek design to its powerful functionality, this device is a true masterpiece. First off, the setup was incredibly easy. I downloaded the app, synced it with the vibrator, and within minutes, I was ready to explore. This app is user friendly, and it offers a variety of modes and intensity levels, allowing for a personalized experience every time. I especially love the ability to create custom patterns. It's like having a personal pleasure assistant. Ooh. The vibrations are powerful yet whisper quiet, making it perfect for discreet use. I was pleasantly surprised at how effective it is in targeting the G spot. The curved design feels amazing, and the combination of the app features with the vibrator's ergonomic shape truly elevates the experience. One of my favorite aspects in this option to connect with a partner is the ability to let them control the vibrator from anywhere as an exciting dynamic to a relationship, making long distant moments intimate and fun. It's a great way to keep the spark alive. Additionally, the quality of materials is top notch. It's body safe, easy to clean, which gives me a peace of mind. The battery life is impressive too. I've used it multiple times on single charge without any issues. Overall, I highly recommend this app controlled G Spot vibrator to anyone looking to enhance their pleasure. Whether you're enjoying it solo or with a partner, it offers a unique and satisfying experience that is hard to beat. This little device has become a staple in my collection. I can't imagine my intimate moments without it. Oh my God. I know that was a long review, but like, wow. She really went into detail about this. And in the picture too, I'll put it back. Put it back up here. There's just like a little like grooved edge, and that like it scared me. But she explained in there that actually really helps. So the thing about this is it's a G spot vibrator, right? So it's like 1 to 4 inches in, where your G spot, is, and it has like a very like rigid side here. I got a curved top. The only thing about this that I would be concerned about is for me, I do not like internal vibration. I just like it hitting it, not vibrating it. Just too much. It makes my whole body vibrate. And when I was playing around with this, I couldn't necessarily find out, how to get it to just like vibrate on the clit because it has like an outer simulation as well. And that was the only problem that I found with it. So when I do get to explore with this, hopefully I'm able to, find out how to just have it vibrate on the outside rather than on the inside. But that was a great review, and thank you to whoever wrote that. But again, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I love you all. But before you go, please like, subscribe, and share out this podcast. It'll really help a girl out. I love you. And with lots and lots and lots of lube, remember, Clit-Municate. Mwah.